Hello friends. Welcome back to the channel. If you are returning after a gap, understand this quietly. I did not come back to talk louder. I came back to talk sharper, because the smallest English habits create the biggest invisible distance between you and native speakers. Before anything else, let me say one thing clearly. This channel is not about sounding intelligent. It is about sounding natural enough that nobody questions you. Now listen carefully. You can speak English every single day and still feel that something is missing. People listen to you, but they do not fully relax around you. They understand your words, but the conversation never feels smooth. And most people blame accent. Some blame grammar. Some blame confidence. But that is not the real issue. The real issue is something far more subtle. It is how certain everyday English phrases feel when you use them. Not how they look, not whether they are correct, but how they land emotionally. These are the kinds of mistakes nobody corrects. People simply adjust their behavior around you. They respond shorter. They engage less. They move on faster. And you never know why. Today, we are starting with the most dangerous category of phrases. The ones that sound polite, educated, and safe. The ones you trust the most. The ones that quietly expose that English is not your instinct yet. Before we begin, if you like content like this, hit the subscribe button. Like the video. Press the bell icon so you do not miss our new videos. Let us begin with the most common phrase in the language. How are you? You were taught this as a real question, so you learn to answer it properly. You stop. You think. You explain. You talk about your day, your stress, your workload, your mood, and you believe you are doing the right thing. But here is the shift that changes everything. In real English, most of the time, how are you is not about information. It is not curiosity. It is not concern. It is rhythm. It is a social habit that keeps conversations moving. It is a verbal nod that says, I see you, let us begin. That is why native speakers do not stay on it. They pass through it. Person 1. How are you? Reply with, good, and ask. You. Person 1 replies, good. And then the real conversation starts. When you stop and answer seriously in a moment that expects lightness, the flow breaks. The energy dips. The moment feels heavier than intended. Nothing about your answer is wrong. The timing is. Native English is deeply connected to timing. More than correctness. More than politeness. Once you begin to feel this, conversations start fixing themselves without effort. You stop oversharing where it is not needed. You stop feeling awkward without knowing why. Now pay attention to the next phrase, because this one slowly changes how people judge your confidence. I think. Most learners use I think automatically. It feels safe. It feels respectful. It feels polite. So it appears everywhere. I think this is correct. I think this will work. I think we should do this. But to a native ear, I think does not sound polite. It sounds unsure. It creates distance between you and your own words. It tells the listener you are not fully standing behind what you are saying. Native speakers understand this instinctively. That is why they use I think only when they are genuinely uncertain. When they are confident, they remove it. They let the sentence stand on its own. They do not soften clarity unnecessarily. This is not rudeness. This is comfort. And comfort is what confidence actually sounds like. The moment you stop hiding behind, I think, your sentences gain weight. People start taking your words more seriously without knowing why. Now let us move to a word almost every learner relies on. Please. You were taught that politeness in English is about adding please. So you attach it everywhere. Please explain. Please do this. Please tell me. But real English does not work like that. Politeness is not created by repetition. It is created by balance. When please is overused, especially in neutral or professional situations, it can make you sound uncomfortable instead of respectful. Native speakers soften requests through structure, not through force. They rely on tone, pacing, and calm certainty. That is why they often sound polite without sounding needy. This is one of the first moments where learned English and lived English separate, and most learners never notice it. Now let us go deeper, because this is where English stops being about words and starts being about emotional signals. There is a word many learners use without realizing what it does to a conversation. Actually, it sounds harmless, even intelligent. So, it slips into sentences easily. Actually, I think this is better. Actually, I wanted to say something. Actually, that is not the case. But to a native ear, actually changes the temperature instantly. It sounds corrective. It signals disagreement. It prepares the listener to defend their position. Native speakers know this instinctively. That is why they use actually only when correction is intentional. When learners use it casually, the sentence feels sharper than intended. The listener feels challenged instead of included. This is how English works beneath the surface. Words do not just carry meaning. They carry attitude. Now notice another phrase that quietly damages trust. I will try. It sounds cooperative. It sounds polite. It sounds responsible. So learners use it often. I will try to finish it today. I will try to help. I will try to do it. But native speakers hear uncertainty. I will try sounds like effort without commitment. It sounds like possibility without responsibility. That is why native speakers avoid this phrase when accountability matters. They replace it with intention. They say they will handle it. They say they will look into it. They say they will get back. Even when outcomes are uncertain, their tone remains firm. This is not about lying. It is about signaling seriousness. Now pay attention to a word that instantly reveals textbook English. Kindly, grammatically correct, socially distant. In everyday spoken English, kindly sounds formal, outdated, and sometimes passive-aggressive. Native speakers rarely say it aloud. They prefer warmth over formality. They choose simplicity over structure. This is why simple English often sounds more powerful than complex English. Now consider a structure that exposes translation instantly. I am having a doubt. I am having a question. I am having a problem. Native speakers do not speak like this. They say they have a question. They say they are confused. They say there is a problem. The difference is small, but the effect is immediate. Native English avoids unnecessary structure. It moves directly to the point. And the closer your English moves to that simplicity, the more invisible it becomes. This invisibility is the goal. Not sounding advanced. Not sounding impressive. Sounding natural enough that nobody notices your English at all. Now comes the part most people never talk about. Native speakers do not build sentences consciously. They respond to situations. They are comfortable with silence. They are comfortable with short answers. They are comfortable not explaining themselves. Learners often feel pressure to perform, to justify, to soften everything. That pressure leaks into language. When you stop trying to prove your English is good, it becomes good. When you stop decorating sentences, your words land stronger. English is not about saying more. It is about saying less at the right time. Once this clicks, people start reacting differently to you. They interrupt you less. They trust you more. They respond faster. Not because your grammar changed overnight, but because your presence did. English was never the real problem. The problem was the invisible habits hiding inside it. Now you know what to listen for. Now you know why certain phrases create distance. Now you know why native speakers sound calm without sounding impressive. This awareness is the beginning, not the end. Now let us slow down even more, because this final layer is not about phrases you memorize. It is about habits you carry into every sentence without noticing. Up to now, you may feel that these changes are small, almost minor, easy to ignore. But this is exactly why they matter. Native speakers do not decide how they feel about your English by analyzing it. They decide it instinctively, within seconds. before the conversation even develops. An instinct reacts to patterns, not rules. This is why someone with simple English can sound powerful, while someone with advanced vocabulary can sound unsure. This is why confidence in English often has nothing to do with fluency. One of the biggest differences between native speakers and learners is comfort with imperfection. Native speakers are comfortable sounding incomplete. They pause. They stop mid-sentence. They change direction. Learners often feel the need to finish everything perfectly, to close every thought, to explain every idea fully. That need creates pressure, and pressure leaks into tone. You can hear it when someone rushes. You can feel it when someone over-explains. You can sense it when someone apologizes before speaking. English was never meant to be performed. It was meant to be shared. Another invisible habit that holds learners back is over-softening. Learners often add extra words to avoid sounding rude. They dilute their own message without realizing it. They add fillers. They add politeness where it is not needed. They add explanations before the point. Native speakers do the opposite. They trust the listener. They trust the moment. They trust that clarity is not rude. This is why their sentences land cleanly. When you remove unnecessary softness, your English does not become aggressive. It becomes calm. Calm English sounds confident because it does not ask for approval. Now pay attention to this because it changes everything. Native speakers are not trying to sound native. They're trying to communicate efficiently. Learners often chase correctness. Native speakers chase ease. That is why native English feels relaxed. That is why it feels effortless. The moment you shift your focus from correctness to ease, your English starts correcting itself. You stop translating in your head. You stop monitoring every word. You start responding instead of preparing. This is when English becomes instinctive. And once English becomes instinctive, something powerful happens. You stop thinking about how you sound. You start thinking about what you want to say. People feel that shift immediately. They respond to you, not your language. They engage with your ideas, not your delivery. This is the moment when English stops being a skill and starts becoming a tool. You no longer feel like a learner. You feel like a participant. And that is the real transformation. Because fluency is not about speaking perfectly. It is about feeling comfortable enough to be imperfect. If you reach this point, your English will keep improving on its own, even without practice. Every conversation becomes training. Every reaction becomes feedback. And slowly, without effort, your English aligns itself with the moment. This is why native speakers sound natural without trying. This is why simple English carries so much weight. And this is why the phrases you learned across these parts matter more than any advanced rule you will ever memorize. They are not just phrases. They are signals. Signals that tell people whether you are comfortable, confident, and present. And once those signals change, everything else follows. This is not the end of this topic. This is the foundation. From here, every video will build on this instinct, layer by layer, until your English feels so natural that you stop noticing it altogether. That is when you know it is working. And once you reach this point, something becomes clear. English was never holding you back. What held you back were the invisible habits you carried into every sentence without realizing they were there. Now you can hear them. Now you can feel when a phrase fits and when it does not. Now you understand why some conversations feel smooth and others feel heavy. This awareness changes everything. From this moment onward, you will not need to force improvement. Every conversation will start correcting you quietly. Every reaction will teach you something without effort. That is how English becomes natural. That is how confidence grows without performance. That is how people start responding to you differently without knowing why. This is not the end of this topic. This is the foundation. And if you want to keep building this instinct, stay with this channel. Subscribe, because the next videos go deeper into the phrases and habits that quietly decide how people treat you the moment you speak. Like the video if this made you rethink your English, because it helps this reach people who need it. Comment one sentence you now realize you have been using incorrectly, because awareness is where real fluency begins. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.